From KPRC 2, this is Houston Newsmakers with Cambrell Marshall.
Well, for all of this past Texas legislative session, voting rights was one of the main items of attention and contention. Republicans pushing for stronger voting laws while Democrats pushed back and at one point left the state to keep a quorum from being reached to keep legislative votes from happening that they said would hurt the voting rights of many. It was a ploy that did not work. SB 1 was ultimately passed, now law, but not so fast, says Harris County Attorney Christian Menifee. And the Brennan Center for Justice at NYU, they filed a preliminary injunction to keep at least one part of that law from taking effect. Harris County Attorney Christian Menifee joins me this morning to talk about this effort. Good morning to you, sir. Tell me, what does this mean in layman's terms that people can understand about why you're doing this?
We're filing this lawsuit because the state's law, SB 1, is really about Republican leaders in Austin trying to criminalize voting and election processes. This law would make it illegal, and elections officials could face criminal penalties if they encourage folks to vote by mail. Now, that makes no sense because we know that voting by mail is efficient, it's safe, and there are states across this country, including states run by Democrats and states run by Republicans, that do universal vote by mail and that send out mail ballot applications to all registered voters in the state. The only reason that we're here in the state of Texas, where leaders in Austin are trying to criminalize this behavior, is to fight a fake war on widespread voter fraud, which we know doesn't exist. So we're taking them to court in order to get a court to stop them from doing that.
Would this injunction apply only to Harris County or for the whole state?
So it would likely apply to the entire state, because what we're asking a court to rule is that this law, as it relates to election officials, is unconstitutional. Right? What they're asking, what they're effectively trying to do is require elections officials to be prohibited from encouraging folks to vote by mail. And why that's important, Cambrell, is here in the state of Texas, the folks who are allowed to vote by mail are folks who are over the age of 65 and folks who are disabled, right? And so these are folks that each and every Texan has likely in their family. And so there's already a limited number of people who can vote by mail, and it's important that elections officials be able to inform your 68-year-old grandmother that, hey, in the middle of a pandemic with the Omicron variant running wild, you have the option to participate in this process by mail, and you should consider it. And so we're pushing back on that, and we're hoping that the court will step in and say that this provision is unconstitutional and vindicate the rights of disabled and over 65 Texans across this entire state.
So some would say that the courts shouldn't intervene and undo something that elected officials have passed into law. Your comment to that?
Well, my response would be, look at Brown v. Board of Education. You know, separate but equal was the law for a very long time in this country. And it took the courts to step in and say, no, that there is no such thing as separate but equal, because every time it's separate, it is unequal. And instead, there must be equality in this country. Most of the major civil rights battles that have been won in this country have been won in the courts. It has been started in the courts. And so I think it's important for the courts to maintain that role of ensuring that the rights of all people in our state and in our country are protected.
Well, you know, as long as Republicans control the state legislature, and they have for generations, other than getting Democrats elected, which has not been a winning strategy, what are your options and those of other people who believe restrictive obstacles are being placed in front of voters? What else do you have in your quiver, so to speak?
Well, I'd say there are two main arrows. One is the federal government passing legislation, including the For the People Act, which would set uniform voting practices across the country. But unfortunately, due to a couple of senators in the United States Senate, we've seen that there has not been much movement on that piece of legislation. The second is local government leaders, especially the lawyers like myself, stepping into the courts and getting the courts to set the rules of the road whenever the state legislature is passing laws that violate federal law or that violate the state or federal constitution. And what this is really about here is making it a criminalized practice, right? Criminalizing the action of folks who look a certain way and vote for certain folks, criminalizing them from voting, right? If we look at Crystal Mason, this is a young black woman who in 2016 voted and didn't know she was ineligible to vote because of a nonviolent crime she had committed years ago and had already served time for. what we saw was from the state of Texas and from a district attorney, she was prosecuted and sentenced to 5 years in prison for voting, even though she didn't know she was eligible. Or you can look at Mr. Hervis Rogers, who waited more than 6 hours in line to vote at Texas Southern University here in Houston. And once that story got national profile, the Texas Attorney General then stepped in and indicted him for voting when he was ineligible, even though the crimes that he had committed, he had already served times for, and they were committed more than 20 years ago. So again, this is what I would say a war on elections officials, a war on folks who look a certain way and think a certain way from participating in the electoral process. And it's important that our elected leaders at the local level stand in the gap, and protect our residents from these types of things.
Well, we'll, of course, keep up with what's going on. Harris County Attorney Christian Menifee, thank you for your time this morning. And we, of course, will keep an eye on what's going on and follow your progress there. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Thank you for